Hello, we're here at Capclave 2016, and our guest for this episode is Sarah Beth Durst, whose new adult novel, The Queen of Blood, from Harper Voyager, is in bookstores now. Sarah, welcome to Fast Forward, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Let's start off with The Queen of Blood, and let's just jump right in.
All right.
I really did enjoy this book. It was really a compelling read. As you go further and further into it, you get very involved in the characters and you're rooting for them and you're very afraid for them at the same time because you are a cruel taskmaster when it comes to adventures.
Thank you.
And help me with pronunciations. Is it Delena?
Delena.
Delena is our protagonist,
Yes.
a young lady who suffers a terrible tragedy when her village is destroyed, except for her family because of a gift she has.
Yeah.
In a world where humans coexist with visible, active, and occasionally malevolent spirits of the earth, air, water, ice, etc. And you've created this very interesting world where there's a very delicate balance and a perilous coexistence between these two forces, those of nature and those of mankind. Before we start talking a little more about the story, what made you create this particular kind of universe in which to place your stories?
Well, this book, actually with a lot of books, I can't trace back the origin. This one had a particular moment that it was born. I was at this writing retreat in the Poconos, and it was this beautiful place. There were these huge, tall trees, and each writer was given this adorable little log cabin. And I was walking up thinking, I am a writer at a writing retreat, and I was looking at the tall trees and listening to the birds, and I fell flat on my face. And so I cut my lip, so I was like, trees, bloodthirsty nature spirits, and it was born in that instant.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was born in klutziness, yeah.
Now, you construct a very interesting mechanism by which there's a balance is achieved between these two seemingly opposed forces, which is a pact between the spirits of the various forces of nature. There are 6 of them, I believe. Mm-hmm. Fire, water, air, earth, ice, and wood.
Yes.
And a single human representative in several kingdoms that you have within the world you've created, who provides a level of control and provides the break that they need in order for them to be able to exist in the world without destroying it themselves.
Right. Yeah, if you didn't have the queen, the spirits would run wild to the point where the world would be completely unlivable. So they need that queen as much as the people need the spirits, because if the spirits weren't there, the nature wouldn't exist. Nothing would grow. They would all die. Would be
and in the book, you explain that when a spirit is killed, a portion of the land does wither.
Right.
Because they're attached to specific geographic points within the land of Renthia?
Yes, Renthia.
Yes. After you got the idea for this book, when did you actually start putting together a storyline and creating your characters?
Pretty much right away. It was actually at that retreat. For me, I think there's a myth that when you get ideas from books, it comes as a lightning strike and all at once, and you know what the full story is. And it doesn't always happen that way. I'm sure occasionally it does, but most of the time you get a little spark, like the bloodthirsty nature spirits. And then you get another spark and another spark and another spark, and then they join together and finally you have a fire and there's something growing. And the trick is not to stomp on those sparks when they're there, and then the story would go out just to let them grow. So for this, the initial spark was that idea of the nature spirits, and the second spark was Delena herself. I wanted to write about somebody ordinary who does something extraordinary. So that's where this particular story
Delena, she's not the chosen one. She's not the
Exactly.
predestined savior of the kingdom. Nothing like that. She's just basically, as we go step by step and follow her through her adventures, she's just hanging on in each instance, sometimes literally through sheer force of will.
Yeah, she's the mediocre student. She doesn't have this innate power. There's no prophecies about her. Nobody gives her this magic sword. She doesn't discover her special power that she didn't know of. She really wants to protect her family and save her world. So her magic is really this determination, sheer pig-headed stubbornness.
Because every time she turns around, there's somebody who's saying, "You're still here?"
Right. She's not at all the best in the class, which I loved writing.
But what you do with it is fantastic. She's not the best, so she has to figure out how to leverage
Right. She has to
what
be
she
smart.
can do. She has to think of doing it in a different way so that she can do the same things, pretty much, as the other students, but using a different approach to the magic or the communication she has with the spirits.
She has to use what strength she has. She has to use her cleverness, and that was a lot of fun to write because I've set up this world where there are these impossible odds. Nature wants to kill them, but if they kill these nature spirits, their world will be destroyed. So they have to learn to coexist with them and not die in the process.
It's a difficult balance throughout the book. There's the yin and yang is just, it's always there in the forefront. I was reading somewhere in an interview that the Queen of Blood, we're talking about Delinia here,
Yeah.
was not originally going to be the first book in the Queens of Renthia series.
No, it wasn't.
Why not?
Well, okay, so the first idea I had was for a book called The Reluctant Queen, which is what's going to be the name of book 2. And I wrote about 80 or 90 pages in this. And it was about a queen whose life is in danger and a second point of view character of this woman who had immense power but was afraid to use it because she knows if she uses her power, then her odds of dying increase hugely.
Because she's noticed.
Yes, using the power draws the spirits. And she doesn't want to die and leave her children motherless. So I wrote about 80 or 90 pages of this story, and I had the whole synopsis. And my agent sent it out and sent it to my editor, David Pomerico at Harper Voyager, who said, "This is great, I love this, but can I talk to Sarah on the phone?" Which was totally like this, "Can we talk?" kind of thing. And I was like,
Really?
okay. So we get on the phone, and he said, "I love this, but can this be book 2?" I'm like, "Sure." So we agreed, and we signed the contract and all of that, and I didn't have a sentence written for it. So I sat down to write The Queen of Blood, knowing where it was going to end up. So I knew the fate of all these characters, but I didn't know where they came from. So it made this really unique writing process that I'd never had happen. And now that it's done, I can't imagine the story starting in any other way. I'm so grateful to him because this needed to happen. It feels like this is a story I had to tell first.
Now, this is being touted as your first adult fantasy novel. And you've written 10, 12?
Yeah, this is my 11th novel.
You've written 10 before this, there's a span of different styles and approaches and different age groups that these books are targeted to by the publisher, not necessarily by you, but by the publisher. What is different about this book that makes it considered adult as compared to your earlier works?
I think it's the feel of the world. It's this epic fantasy where it's very sprawling and you have multiple viewpoints, and not all of those viewpoints are young. Delena gets to age 18 in this book, so she's sort of the YA age. But there's also Ven, who is the disgraced champion, and he's in his 40s, and he's another point of view character. And Queen Farah is also has some scenes as well, and I think getting that adult viewpoint is what makes it.
And the headmistress is also another strong character in the book, too.
Right, and she's much older as well. So, I mean, I do consider Queen of Blood to be adult YA crossover because it does have that entry point of Delena for younger readers, but it's also got the older point of view characters for
and
older
if
readers.
the central character in your second book in this series is a mother of children,
right.
Again, we're talking about a more adult protagonist than in many of the younger books.
And then Delena in the second book is about 19, so she's. I don't want to give spoilers away.
There's a lot of pain and sadness in this book. There's a lot of loss. There's tremendous loss in this book. is that part of what makes it adult, is the fact that the consequences of failure are so graphically presented in this book? Is that part of it? Or is that something that would occasionally occur in some of your other storytelling?
You'd get that in younger as well, I think. For me, the thing I love about books is fantasy, and that's what I want to write, and I don't really care what age I'm writing for, so long as it's something fantastical. That's what I love. That's what I'm drawn to. And it's more, the story determines sort of who it's for. When I sit down to write, I don't think about who's reading it. I don't think about what age they are. I don't sit down and say, now I shall write for children. Now I'm going to write an adult book. There's a story I want to tell. And some of them, the themes, for instance, The Girl Who Could Not Dream is my most recent kids book, and that's marketed at ages 8 through 12.
And that's about a family who manufactures dreams but can't dream themselves.
Yeah, it's about this girl named Sophie. Her parents buy, bottle, and sell dreams, and that's about her first adventure with her best friend, who is a monster, named Monster, who loves cupcakes. But that had to be a kid's book because it's about firsts. It's about her first adventure, her first friendship, her first taste of independence. So that's why she kind of had to be that age. Whereas The Queen of Blood, it's about power. It's about who has power, who wants it, what you do with it, what it does to you. And for that felt much more adult to me, because the kind of power I wanted them to have and wanted to deal with, they needed to have those positions of being a queen, of being a champion, of growing up in this world of life and death. So that's what made the difference
and
for me.
It's a very stark world in that way. I mean, the consequences of a misstep are almost always catastrophic in this world.
Yeah.
Everybody's on a tightrope. Even the ordinary people in the villages are on a tightrope almost constantly. Charms, having to have a wise woman to manufacture the charms, to take care of small problems and everything else like that. That's just a part of the fabric of the world you built.
Yeah, I built this really, I consider it a really beautiful world because you have all these nature spirits. The lands in it are very extreme. Like Arete, where this one is set, has these mammoth, like Lothlorien size, Endor size trees that they live halfway up the trunks. And then there's Simo in the north, which has sky-piercing mountains. And then Elim, which is the glacier land, is like massive fields of glacier and so forth because of these nature spirits. So I created this gorgeous utopia filled with imminent danger. And I often say I would love to visit it, but I would probably die in about 10 minutes. So.
Yes. Oh, look, a flower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would be the one in the zombie apocalypse that would be the fodder that would help everybody else escape because they're eating me. So.
I want to talk about, you're a very prolific writer, or at least it appears to be that case. You have books coming out on a regular basis. I mean, you have 10, this is 11. And we have so many authors in the field who take an extraordinary amount of time to move into the next phase of their story. How do you avoid, especially in something like this where you're going to be writing a series, how do you avoid the dreaded writer's block?
Chocolate, a whole lot of chocolate. Now, for me, I love writing. It's what makes me happy. And if I skip a day of writing, I get grumpy, like noticeably grumpy to the point that people around me will be like, you haven't written today, right? I was like, oh yeah, I gotta go do that. So I need to write every day. It's part of what makes the world feel balanced. This is not saying it goes well every day. You know, sometimes you do hit a wall, and sometimes you look at your prose and you're like, there's no verbs anywhere. But for me, the cure to writer's block is always to keep writing. That's sort of my cure to anything in life, is keep writing. And lying to yourself works really well. If you tell yourself no one's going to see this, you know, I'm just playing, I'll just play with the scene, and then you keep going, sometimes you'll find the seed, you'll find the sentence in there that'll unlock and get you going past the writer's block.
Well, I love to hear that, because it means that you won't keep us waiting for the next book that long.
No, I won't. I've actually, and nobody told me this when I started writing, but I've gotten faster. I didn't think that was going to happen. And I think the reason it is when you're first starting out, you have all these myths in your head about what a writer is supposed to do. I'm supposed to sit in a silent room for hours on end and wait for the muse to arrive, and only then can you write. You have to be in the right mood, the right inspiration. Like, no, You know, if you have 15 minutes, you sit down and you put a few sentences together. I think there's a danger in building it up to this grand, I shall write a novel today. Whereas if you just make it part of your life every day.
I shall
you
tell
can
a
get
story
there.
today.
Right. But you can tell a little bit of the story each day, and by the end of it, you have a whole thing.
You have a whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, we already know the next book in this series is The Reluctant Queen, but I want to talk
Yes.
about one last thing. We're almost out of time. You're having something filmed.
I am, yes.
Tell us about that.
One of my YA novels, Drink, Slay, Love, which is about a vampire girl. And
I love the cover of that. Normally, I
you.
wouldn't think of blood in a Coke bottle, but it works.
Yeah, I love that cover too. So it's about a vampire who's totally evil, and I highly recommend writing about an evil character. So much fun to write. Who gets stabbed through the heart by a unicorn horn, as happens, and starts to
Every
develop
day.
a conscience, and is very mad about this because she prefers being evil. So it's going to be a TV movie on Lifetime, and they actually just finished filming a couple weeks ago, and it's going to air in early 2017.
Now, did you have any input, or you would just notify that the book was sold, and then you were basically, they took it and ran with it, or
They
did
took
you?
it and ran with it. I got to talk to the director, which was so much fun, and was watching online, you know, seeing where they filmed on location and so forth, and I'm so excited for it.
Do you know when they're planning on releasing it?
I don't know what month, but I do know it will be early 2017 on Lifetime.
Oh, that'll be an event in the household, won't it?
Yes, I'm very excited. It's just so cool to know that these characters that were in my head, that there were people, they filmed in Canada, that there were people pretending to be these characters that were in my head like for several weeks. And I thought that was awesome. There's something so amazing when you release a book, any book, about this dream that was in your head, and suddenly you're inviting other people to come and walk in your imagination with you and take this journey with you. I love that feeling.
Last question.
Yeah.
Is it any different now? When you had your first book purchased and you knew it was going to be published and it came out and it was there, is it still the same feeling every time a new book that came out of your head arrives in your hands?
It's still amazing, because like this thing that didn't exist before now exists. And it's what I've always wanted to do for my entire life. I mean, I've wanted to write, except when I was 5 and I wanted to be Wonder Woman, which didn't work out.
I believe they have another actress doing that now.
Yeah, it's just as well. I mean, the invisible jet, I can barely remember where I park and my car is visible, so yeah. But writing and telling stories, it just feels like it's what I'm meant to do as well.
You have fun, we have fun. It seems like a very fair exchange.
Good.
Sarah Beth, thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to The Reluctant Queen next year. And please enjoy the rest of your stay here at Capclave.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, that's it for this edition of Fast Forward. We hope you found something of interest. We hope you come see us again. Until then, this is Tom Schad saying, take care.